Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So believe it or not, the iPhone 11 has actually been out for several months now. I want to say like about 5 months at this point. And what's crazy is that this thing is just getting better and better with age, and I think there's so many advantages with it. But another phone, it's one of its older brothers in a way, the iPhone 10. It's also a phone that's still on the market and really has only gotten better and better through time. And I want to kind of do an updated video and updated comparison between both of them and seeing how they hold up, basically even looking at the price points of these things, because the iPhone 11 has depreciated just a little bit in the used market, not by a lot. I mean, they're still selling for pretty much like $600, but sometimes deals come out and a lot of different things come out, and at the same time the iPhone 10 is also depreciated a little bit, so it's always cool to see how these phones kind of compare, several months later. They both have gotten the same software updates and different things like that, and they both actually have jailbreak access now, which is really crazy, and that's one of the biggest advantages and one of the biggest differences that have happened. The iPhone 11 has received its first jailbreak, and whether you care about it or not, maybe a lot of people don't care, but that's a cool thing. And for people who are into modifying their phones and stuff, that's one of the coolest things ever. So we'll hit on that in a second. But like I said before, the iPhone 11 has that 6.1-inch liquid retina display on the front. It's 828 by 1792. And so far for me owning it for the last couple months, dude, I think it's a pretty good display. I really don't think there's really anything wrong with it. Of course, when you compare it to an OLED display, it's not, I don't think the same quality as an OLED display. It's not horrible though. I mean, it definitely has some advantages for it, but that is one thing to consider. The screen, I feel like on the OLED devices are better than on the iPhone 11. On the iPhone 10 though, we have a 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display. It's a very, very good panel. It's so good. I literally love this thing so much. That's definitely one of my favorite things about this phone, of the iPhone 10, would definitely be that display. Really anything I've ever done on the iPhone 10, even when I compare it to like my S10s and my S10 Pluses and all those other phones that I've had, I feel like the iPhone 10 is still top tier, and I can't wait to get my Samsung Galaxy S20s so I can start comparing those screens and everything like that and seeing how those hold up. Now, one thing that I've noticed with the iPhone 11 since I've been doing those comparisons several months ago, and one of my least favorite things about the iPhone 11 would definitely be how easily that screen is scratched. For some reason, the phone is more durable from what I've heard and what I've seen, but the iPhone 11, for some reason, the screen just scratches way faster than on my iPhone 10, which I'm not really too sure why. Really, the first time I picked it up and started messing with it, I thought it was fine, but then one day I put it in my book bag and I took it out, which I've done on several of my phones that I've had before, and the iPhone 11 screen was just totally scratched up, and that was one of the biggest, scaring factors of me. I was like, man, am I going to have to cover this phone up and all sorts of stuff, because it's not my main phone. I just use it to make these videos with, and that's one of the scariest things ever. I don't know why it scared me so much, but the same thing happened with my 11 Pro and my 11 Pro Max. So if you're picking up a used iPhone 11, or if you're planning on getting an iPhone 11, definitely put a glass screen protector on it and or a case. The iPhone 10 though, it really didn't scratch up as much, especially with me owning it. I keep it in a drawer, I mess around with it, I throw it around, I make videos on, all that stuff, I put it face down on the thing. It really hasn't scratched up that badly, so I'm not really too sure what Apple did here, but that is one thing that I definitely noticed, in the last couple months of owning it. They both have lightning ports on the bottom, dual camera setups on the back, and one thing I want to get out of the way is the telephoto versus ultra wide. I don't really think I've noticed that big of a difference, and I don't really think it really matters. They both have dual camera setups, and that's all I really care about. Now, price-wise, the iPhone 11 you can get on Amazon for about like $600, a little bit less than that. If you're lucky, they have deals sometimes, and if you're especially lucky, some person will list it, even cheaper just because they got it on sale or something like that. So yeah, I would say about $550 to $600 on the used market right now. On Amazon, you can pick it up for around $650, so I'll leave that link down in the description. But with the iPhone 10, you can pick one up for about $400, which is a lot cheaper than the iPhone 11. So if you want to pick that one up, I'll leave that one linked down in the description as well. And since release date, both phones have seen depreciation, which is really cool, and hopefully by next year or this year when the new iPhones come out, we'll have even more depreciation on these, and maybe the iPhone 11 will be in that $400 price range, who knows. So definitely one of the cooler things that I'm looking forward to. Both have IP certification. IP67 does some water resistance on the iPhone 10, IP68 does some water resistance on the iPhone 11, and that really pretty much covers it up in terms of the outside. There's really not much more to hit on here, and not much has changed in terms of the outside, so that really pretty much covers it up there. Now, the iPhone 10 started off with iOS 11.1.1, and the iPhone 11 started off with iOS 13, and right now on both, we're able to get iOS 13.3.1, and since owning the iPhone 11 and even doing those comparisons, we've seen a lot of iterations of the iOS 13 update, but for some reason Apple has not been pushing out a ton of updates recently. They've really been taking their time with it, and maybe they're focusing on iOS 14, and But I will say that iOS 13 on my iPhone 11 has been pretty, fine so far. I haven't really seen too many issues with it. There were some issues I was having early on, maybe around that like January timeframe or even last month, not early on, but I would say around that December timeframe, somewhere near there. And I was having some weird issues, especially with the first update. Obviously, there's always going to be issues with it, but so far it's been pretty good. Even on my iPhone 10 has been pretty good. So software is software. It's just going to be one of those things we have to deal with. But like I've said, one of the biggest changing factors we've seen in the last several months would definitely be those jailbreaks. So the check range jailbreak came out for the iPhone 10, and that's a humongous advantage. And I still think it's a better jailbreak than the one we have in the iPhone 11. Basically, it's unpatchable. You can be on any iOS version and be set. The iPhone 11, though, is a little bit different. You have that uncovered jailbreak, which is, a really, really nice thing that just came out like 2 or 3 days ago or even like a week ago. And with that jailbreak, you don't need a computer, you don't need anything like that, but you do have to be on certain iOS versions. But for the majority of iPhone 11 users, you're probably going to be on those iOS versions. You can be on iOS 13 to iOS 13.3, which is only one version behind. 13.3.1 is the latest one right now, so that's a huge thing you have to kind of consider when looking at both these phones. They both have the same type of jailbreak access, but the iPhone 10 I think has the better jailbreak, but it doesn't really matter if you don't jailbreak for your phone or not. But it's just like an extra cool little thing that you're able to do on both phones. So that's a humongous changing thing that we've seen on both phones since they first released. Now moving on to the performance side of things, I've already done several comparisons, looking at both of these things, and even when iOS 14 comes out, I'll do an updated video on that one and seeing how that one holds up and everything. But what I can tell you about the performances is that I'll just tell you the specs first. The iPhone 10 has the Apple A11 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU. There were two different models of the iPhone 10, a 64 and 256 gig models with 3 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPhone 11 has the Apple A13 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and there's 3 different models of the iPhone 11, a 64, 128, and 256 gigabyte models, and all those models have 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now I can tell you about the performances. Like I've said before, I found that the iPhone 11 was the faster device overall. I think there was definitely more speed with the iPhone 11 than the iPhone 10, and I think, definitely without a doubt the iPhone 11 is the faster phone. But like I've said before, and like I've said, and even in that comparison, I still think the iPhone 10 is a tremendous performing phone. I just did a video on it the other day about like jailbreak tweaks or something, and dude, it's still a very fast performing phone. Anything I did with it was perfectly fine, and I really do like that phone based on the performance that I've had. I've really had, very little issues with it. I think it's very good. Yeah, there's some weird things here and there, but I think ultimately the iPhone 10 is a very good performing phone, but the iPhone 11 is the better performing phone without a doubt. Really, whatever you're going to do with it is going to last you for a very long time, and it's only getting better from here. So without a doubt, I'll definitely tell you the iPhone 11 is the better performing phone, but the iPhone 10 still has a lot of cool things going for it without a doubt. Now moving on to the cameras, there's dual camera setups on both these phones. Like I've stated, the iPhone 10 has two 12 megapixel sensors, a wide angle lens and a telephoto lens, and on the front it has a 7 megapixel camera sensor, where the iPhone 11 has two 12 megapixel sensors, a wide angle lens and an ultra wide sensor, and the front camera is 12 megapixels. Now talking about those front cameras for a second, the iPhone 10 can only shoot 1080p videos, which is still decent for a lot of people, but the iPhone 11 can shoot 4K videos at 60 frames per second on that front camera. There's still phones that can't even do that on the back camera, like that Pixel 4 and 4 XL. The iPhone 11 has the capability of shooting those type of quality of videos, which is insane, and I love seeing that in a phone like this. The back cameras on both, they can do 4K at 60 frames, which is awesome, and I think in terms of just the overall quality, they're both very good quality cameras. I've already done separate camera tests on both these as well, and I can definitely tell you that I think the iPhone 11 is the better phone for sure, but you just kind of have to figure out, do you like that telephoto lens or that ultra-wide sensor? Me personally, I think I do kind of like that ultra-wide sensor at the end of the day, so that really pretty much covers it up in terms of the camera. Now ending it off with the battery life, the iPhone 10 has a 2716 mAh battery, the iPhone 11 has a 3110 mAh battery, and I think both battery lives are pretty decent, but without a doubt the iPhone 11 definitely has a better battery life at the end of the day. You can definitely go much longer times with the iPhone 11's battery, and I think at the end of the day it definitely does you much better by having a battery on the iPhone 11 like that size than on the iPhone 10, but it's still pretty close, but definitely without a doubt you'll get much better battery life on an iPhone 11 than on the iPhone 10 for sure. Now to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, and even to kind of look back and see, how have these phones aged since they first came out, and I'll definitely tell you, like, the iPhone 11 is aging pretty well. There's not really been too many crazy changes, and I'm glad to hear that and glad to say that. There weren't any like scandals with the iPhone 11. There weren't anything that were like deter you from picking it up. There's no Bandgate issues or anything like that. So I'm really happy to report that, happy to say that so far. And I think the iPhone 10 has really gotten better too. You know, I think the biggest thing that's happened was that jailbreak. That was one of my favorite things to see from this phone, and I'm so happy they put it out. So without a doubt, I'll definitely tell you both these phones are better now than they were before, and these phones are only getting better with time in my opinion. So that really pretty much covers it up there. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it would mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those things are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.